What do Falcons do? Rise up. Welcome to Rise Up Reactions, the show where we talk all things Falcons, NFL, Georgia sports, and in general, the sports news of the day. Guys, I had absolutely no intention of making another video. It's late on a Friday. I was not going to do any more videos today. I've already made a short on this as well. I just feel like I have to do a rapid reaction that's longer than 60 seconds to this news of the gambling suspension today. So if you haven't heard, if you've been under a rock in the NFL world today, some breaking news happened around lunchtime. Jameson Williams, former first-round pick, number 12 overall, I believe, from the fleeced trade with the Lions and the Minnesota Vikings last year. He, along with 4 other players, have been implicated in a recent betting scandal. And as of right now, 3 of those players are no longer in the league. They can apply for or reapply to the league next year. Those 3 players are Quintez Cephas, CJ Moore, and then Shaka Toney. Shaka Toney being with the Commies, and the other 2 being Lions players currently. And then you had Jameson Williams along with Stanley Berryhill, who apparently did not bet on NFL games, but bet on some other sports, and they are suspended for the first 6 games of the season next year. I don't really know what to say. This is going to be a very raw video. The more I've thought about this, the more frustrated as a Falcons fan I am. Calvin Ridley. I guess none of these guys learned a damn thing from Calvin Ridley last year when he sat out the entire 2022 season for betting on games that he did not play or participate in from the year prior. It doesn't matter. The thing is this. Yes, sports betting has been ruled on by the Supreme Court as legal across the United States. I have no idea why so many states still don't allow it, other than they just haven't changed their constitutions. Technically, that case from several years ago should have superseded any state's gambling laws for sports betting. But there's still a large number of states, more than half, that do not allow sports betting, which is something that FanDuel, DraftKings, a lot of them are trying to overturn right now. And look, I get it. It should be a right that you have as a citizen of the United States or as somebody who plays in the United States, that's a right that's been determined by the Supreme Court. If that's the camp that you're dying on, I understand. But here's the deal. You work for a private corporation. You work for the National Football League. Their policy could not be more clear. Do not do sports betting. Any kind, none whatsoever. Ain't gonna happen. Not under our watch. Specifically with this, apparently there's a rule that you cannot bet on teams while you are in their facility, and you cannot bet on your own sport. So I guess the rule is these guys probably would have been perfectly fine had they not been in their own facility doing the sports betting. What this basically means, though, is that somehow the Detroit Lions and the NFL are tracking their players and their activities on their phones, which it's kind of crazy as well. It seems like a breach of privacy, but I don't know the contract that these guys are signing. I do know there are 2 things in it. It doesn't matter if illicit substances are legal in the state that you play in. You don't get to do them. You don't get to test positive for them in the NFL. They're much more lax on that than they used to be, but you don't get to test positive for them, and you don't get to sports bet. As far as notable things, obviously Calvin Ridley is the big one from a couple of years ago, where he got caught and then missed the entire last season, and then because his value was in the tank, got traded for a 5th and a conditional possible 2nd round for next year. But you got Jameson Williams over here who, the NFL has been very clear they do not allow betting whatsoever. He should have a full year suspension. I don't care what he was betting on. He should have a full year suspension. Now, that's just based on precedent and only precedent. We all know that the NFL basically stands for the No Fun League. And we also know that the NFL has absolutely zero consistency among their damn punishments. You have guys like Deshaun Watson who went through what I'm basically going to call, for fear of YouTube removing the content or demonetizing, should I ever be able to do that, we're going to go with genital misconduct. For going with genital misconduct, he gets, whatever it was, half the season last year. And then Calvin Ridley bets on games that he was not even involved in, just like all of these guys. Quite frankly, they didn't bet on things that they were involved in that we know of, and they all got a year suspension. Let's go back to Ray Rice back in 2013 and 14. Ray Rice initially got 2 games for violence. I don't know any other way to say it that's not going to get me kicked off of YouTube with this video, but violence. Violence against a particular gender, against somebody that he was dating, I don't think married to. You get the picture. But the video came out, and then he got a 6-game suspension. Meanwhile, you had Josh Gordon going through marijuana abuse at the time, a guy who just couldn't stay clean from a fairly harmless substance from that standpoint. But again, there are some harms to it. We're not going to get into the medical side of that. It's not something that I encourage anybody to do because there is harm to it long term, especially if you're smoking it. You're still inhaling a caustic substance. You're still doing something that alters your mind. You should absolutely never get behind the wheel of the car if that's something that you are doing. And again, it's legal in a lot of states. I do think there will eventually be a Supreme Court case that makes it legal across the entire United States, much like the marriage laws have been legalized nationally across the United States. So, again, we're talking about a fairly complex topic here, but do I think it's justified that Jameson Williams and Stanley Berryhill only get 6 games when there's a precedent for sports betting? No. For that reason, they should both get a year. I think it's weird that Jameson Williams, former top receiver from Alabama, and Calvin Ridley, also former top receiver from Alabama, have both been implicated in the same issue a year apart from each other. I don't know what the guys are learning down at the University of Alabama, but obviously they're not learning the right stuff from Nick Saban down there. It's frustrating to see this. It's frustrating to see that the NFL also is still pushing this so hard in a day where we do know that things are more lax. I completely understand their stance on it, though. They want to protect the integrity of the game when it suits them. So, obviously you got guys like Dan Snyder, who certainly did not protect the shield while he was the owner of the Washington Commies. Just go look him up on Wikipedia for a list of all of his transgressions or alleged transgressions. I think it's pretty well accepted that those things did happen. But again, they are mostly alleged things to have happened. So, I don't know. I'm pissed. I'm frustrated with this. I am not thrilled about the idea of guys getting suspended for this for so long on betting on games they weren't a part of. But at the same time, I do understand the NFL stance. I just wish there was some damn consistency. There seems to be none whatsoever from the NFL. And I just wish they would sit down and figure out what are we going to do for our punishments. Tom Brady got 4 games for Deflategate, and it probably didn't even change the outcome of anything. It just is because he was on a fairly cheating franchise or team that had been caught cheating in the recent past. That's the reason Tom Brady got so much hate over Deflategate. I guarantee you, he could have played with a beach ball against the Indianapolis Colts. It wouldn't have changed a damn thing that night. But anyways, guys, sorry for the language. I'm just really frustrated with this situation. The Lions, I was really rooting for them in the NFC North. I think this hamstrings them a little bit. They've lost some depth pieces, and then they also now are maybe going to have to look at drafting a wide receiver in the middle of the draft to make up for the fact that they're not going to have their number 1 guy this coming year. Thank God they still have Amon-Ra St. Brown, who is going to be a savior on that team. But I don't know what it is about these guys in the NFL. You can't do these things. You cannot break your contract. You need to be understanding everything that is in your contract and what it means to work for your organization. There are things that I can't do working for my hospital system. And again, if I do that, it runs the risk of me getting fired. It's the same thing for the NFL. You cannot do certain things if you sign the contract that you're going to work for the Shield. That's something that these guys have to get across themselves. There are a lot of young and dumb guys out there, but they are all adults, and they are capable of making adult decisions. They're making big boy money, more money than I probably will ever see as a doctor for a lot of these guys. Heck, even the veteran minimum after 10 years in the NFL makes more money than most doctors do in their entire careers. So that's all I got for you today, guys. Frustrating situation. Sad to see it happen for the Lions. A lot of injustice from what happened with Calvin Ridley last year. But again, none of these guys learned a damn thing from that situation. Thank you for watching, liking, sharing, subscribing. I appreciate all the support. Thank you for trying to get me closer to 500 subscribers. I do have the live stream coming up next week on Thursday for the draft. But thank you guys for watching. And as always, rise up.